So a few weeks back in one of my live streams, I was asked a question that kind of made me think. And it was, what are some fragrances that were pivotal in your fragrance journey? And I had some easy answers, but then I was like, there's also this. You know what? I'm going to create a video and talk about that, like 10 fragrances that were pivotal in my fragrance journey. And then I completely forgot about it for 2 weeks because I had a family issue, and now I am back to do that. So I'm sorry to the person who asked me that.
I'm very sorry, and I apologize for the inconvenience of me not giving a fuck what you think.
Today we're going to be talking about 10 fragrances as well as 2 aforementioned ones that were pivotal in my fragrance journey from when I was a kid to now as being dude. So without further ado, let's get it. What's good, my great smelling dudes? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Randy, aka FragranceDoud, back at you with another top 10 list where I'm going to be talking about some fragrances that really helped me in my journey to becoming where I am now, which is almost 10,000 subscribers, FragranceDoud, as a reviewer, which I never ever in a million years thought I would be. I mean, I wasn't big into YouTube. I didn't really care to have a channel. Then my daughter kind of started me into this Pokemon booster set opening thing where me and her would do it on video. And then when I got done with that, I was kind of like addicted to doing videos. And at that point in time, something else happened and it started me into my really down the path of my fragrance journey. By that point in time, I still had like 15 fragrances. But before we get into talking about all that bullshit, make sure that if you haven't already and you like my content, you hit the subscribe button. Everybody, on the way in, hit the like. Takes 2 seconds. Comment below. Let me know what some fragrances that were pivotal in your fragrance journey. Whether it's what started you into fragrances in general, whether it's something that caused something else to happen, whether it was like your first niche, all that kind of stuff. And that's what we're going to be going through today. Again, with 2 kind of afterthoughts that I just thought about right when I was starting to make this video. The first one being my technical first niche of all time. And I completely forgot about this because I got us a bottle after I had a bunch of niche. But prior to that, I had this sample like 10 milliliter mini bottle that somebody gave me before I even knew what niche fragrances were. And it was like back in like 2015 of Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille. So that was a afterthought, but that one was technically my first niche. And the other fragrance is one that I wish I would have thought about this video before I just sat down and did it right now, because this would be in this list 100%. It is the thing that got me really started into fragrances, like at least buying multiple bottles. And this was back in 1997. I still have 1 bottle left with like shrink wrap still around it, but it's like real old looking. And I guarantee you the fluid is probably crap by now. It is by Nautica. It is Nautica Competition. And it is the blue one, not the yellow one. So they released this fragrance in 1997 or 96, somewhere in that time frame. I was in middle school and my parents took me out to, it was Kohl's or something like that, to try out some fragrances so I could buy one for my birthday. And I tried on this one and it had like a weird cap, like a rubbery cap and this kind of like tin bottle. And I sprayed it on and I don't remember what it smells like outside of it. It was kind of like fruity aromatic. And I remember it was just awesome. And to this day in my head, that and Candies are like the best fragrances of all time. The original Candies. And I just loved those 2 fragrances. But then it was discontinued. But as soon as I got that fragrance, I ended up picking up like Lacoste Essential, some other fragrances, and then all the Armanis came out, and then that kind of just set me down the path of getting really into fragrances. But I can tell you that was really my first big fragrance purchase was Nautica Competition. But Yeah, that's not. We don't have that bottle. I wish I would have got that bottle from my parents' house. It's in their attic or somewhere. I honestly don't remember where they put it, but yeah, it's old. With that said, the first one on my list here is going to continue that trend. Again, I said the Armanis came out. Well, Acqua di Gio, the original. As you can tell, this is an old bottle. I don't wear Acqua di Gio. This bottle is from 2006. Yeah, I haven't worn this. That's kind of whenever I started getting sick of it. 2006 is when this bottle was. So, the top notes, mid notes, and base notes, I only kept it for the bottle's sake. I don't know where the cap went. You can tell the writing's all messed up. But from the minute it came out, it was like huge everywhere. Also with Armani Mania. I wish they would bring that fragrance back. That was my favorite Armani of all time. That and Code Profumo. But this one, it started me becoming like that high school person. Acqua di Gio was just the new fad. And it kind of just started me into like, wow, there's all these different versatile fragrances that are just way more higher quality than other fragrances I had in my collection from like my dad's Brut. And my dad even had this one called Realm he always said, it has pheromones, it'll attract the chicks. My friends always used to laugh at him about that. Anyway, Acqua di Gio, it was huge. There's no rhyme or reason why this wouldn't be in most people's lists that are around my age, because you grew up, there was really fragrances at Rite Aid, and then all of a sudden Acqua di Gio was released, and it was like, that's when the whole Macy's fragrance fad came out, and everybody was getting the fragrances from Macy's. And so it was Acqua di Gio that started that. Then we got to move into this one. This one was literally after that Nautica competition was discontinued and brought back as a crappy yellow bottle that smelled horrible. I went into this as my main fragrance. While I still did wear the Armani Manias and Acqua di Gios, and I had about 10 fragrances in my collection, this was my main fragrance, and back then it lasted like 8 to 10 hours. Boss Bottled. As you can tell, I still wear through it. Boss Bottled. It is a fantastic fragrance. You guys can say whatever you want. I don't care. And it also is one of the best layering fragrances of all time as a base layer, especially with spice bombs. If you want to add any amazing tones to a spice bomb or a Killian Angel Share, basically anything that has cinnamon or apple or benzoin, mix this together with it. This is like kind of like a fresh apple pie. You can wear it all year round. It has cinnamon, apple, sandalwood. It's a little bit creamy. Very, very beautiful fragrance. It has a slight plum tone in it as well. Boss Bottled has been and always will be one of my ultimate fragrances, as well as my wife's. It's what to this day, Boss Bottled EDP Intense I wore to my wedding because my wife wanted me to wear that. I have like 6 other Boss Bottleds that my wife absolutely loves, that I love. But the original Boss Bottled, while they have taken that batch and just watered it down a lot, and it only lasts like 3 to 4 hours now, I still love the smell. It's one of my favorite out of the shower scents and stuff like that. But it's warm, creamy, fruity, very, very nice with a little bit of spice. Very nice. But I love wearing it as a layering fragrance with Spice Bomb Infrared. That is the best layering combination outside of Wanted by Night and Most Wanted. Anyway, going into the next one, we're going to go from like how I built my collection. So this one came out and it was kind of on par with the Boss Bottled, where it had that sweetness, but it was kind of like different. And whenever I got it, I was like, yeah, this stuff is good. This is Dolce & Gabbana The One Eau de Toilette, and it is still my favorite Dolce & Gabbana The One fragrance. It is calming. I always like those calming, sweet fragrances. It's a calming, sweet, ambery tobacco with a bit of ginger. The fragrance is very simplistic, very calming, it's kind of like what inspired a lot of those calming fragrances. These two fragrances, they very much have that same style of calming, sweet, semi-spice. While this one uses the cinnamon and the sandalwood, this one uses the amber and tobacco. It's calming, it's sweet, but not too sweet. It still has that masculine vibe to it, and it's a very nice, you can wake up in the morning and spray it on, go on a date and spray it on. I don't care what anybody says, and while everybody has always complained about the performance with this, I have never cared about performance, hence the fact that these two are on this list. But the one is what really started me venturing down the rabbit hole that is designer fragrances. That was this one. It was what got me to go from like 5 to 10 fragrances to 20 fragrances, 25 fragrances, was because once I got the one, I was like, there's so much out there I've never even tried. But yeah, the one, and since I got that Dolce & Gabbana, I mean, that was probably 2011, 2012 at that point in time, maybe a little bit later, I automatically wanted to try another Dolce & Gabbana. So I tried this, and this, I don't like the original that much. I know some other reviewers really live by, hey, that's one of the best. To me, the original Dolce & Gabbana, the one, or not the one, light blue, it smells very watered down. So I like the smell of it, but it smells very watered down. And that's what this one fixes. This is Light Blue Eau Intense by Dolce & Gabbana. This is my wife's favorite summer fragrance. It activates in the heat. It's a very good layering fragrance, especially with Virgin Island water and Set Sail St. Bart's to create this citrus mojito. It's definitely a nice kind of like marine citrus fragrance that has this undertone amber woody nuance that I really, really enjoy. It's effervescent, it's clean, it's fresh. It has a little bit of this green tone underneath it as well. I'm not going to go too far into reviewing the fragrances, so I'm not keeping you guys here all day. But this is one of the first fresh fragrances that was built around freshness that I really, really enjoy. Because, again, I was looking at Boss Bottled. I was looking at The One, Nautica Competition. Most of those fragrances are built around warm freshness. Well, this was one of the first freshness outside of Acqua de Joe. This was one of the first ones that were just like really built around freshness. And I never was a huge fan of Acqua de Joe, like where I was like in love with it. It was always like an afterthought with the other fragrances in my collection. This one became the top dog in my collection, especially for the, you wouldn't find me wearing pretty much anything else other than this during the spring and summer. I never have been a big fan of fresh fragrances. Even up until, well, I'll talk about that in a second, but even it was probably like 2018 when I really was starting to be like, okay, I had about 80% warm fragrances, and then I had about 20% fresh, and of that 20%, I like 10% of them were warm and fresh fragrances. So that'll tell you how much I'm a big fan of fresh fragrances. Anyway, the next one is right around that time, 2011, 2012. It was one of the last Chanel's ever released. I think they released Edition Blanche a little bit after that. But this one, it really hit me. This is the first one that really was a turning point in my collection where I was like, this is what ultimate versatility is. While people were always saying that Acqua de Joe was the key of ultimate versatility, I completely disagree. This is ultimate versatility. Chanel's Allure Homme Sport Eau Extreme. So I was like, I have fragrances that are for the cool weather. I have fragrances that are for the warm weather. I have cool weather fragrances that can be worn in the warm weather, but I don't have a fragrance that literally you smell it and you're like, that is for any season, and it's built for any season. Like Boss Bottled would have been the closest to like, that's a any season fragrance right there, but it even has some warmth. This one is legit the most versatile fragrance in existence. It is that original Allure Homme DNA, that aromatic semi-minty tone, and then you bring in this vanilla. And the vanilla woody tone that is in this fragrance really is what you would think vanilla, that's going to be a warm fragrance. No, it's the way that it's mixed together with the mint and the woods and the musk and the aromatic tones that it just really pushes off. And it's like, okay, so that's not like a warm vanilla. That's not like a cool vanilla. That's just like a very nicely blended, fresh, clean, warm weight. It's like for everything. There's not one thing about this fragrance that you can say, this is actually more leaning towards the winter, or this is more leaning towards the spring. This is more leaning towards every freaking day, every freaking night, every freaking season, every freaking year. It's the most versatile fragrance of all time. So this is what really changed. Wow, there's other fragrances even more. Now that I had 15 to 20 fragrances, there's even more out there that, I mean, if this is the statement of ultimate versatility, and I'm finding this in a retail store, this is really what got me looking, okay, so that's whenever I started using YouTube. That's when I found Robes 08. That's whenever I started realizing there's a bigger world to fragrances. There's like discounters. There's fragrances, brands that are only sold in Europe. That is what started that. It took me like 3 years to really get around to all of that, but it really did figure that out. Now comes the biggest, most pivotal moment in my entire collection. This was back in 2018, and I wasn't huge into fragrances. I was watching Robes 08. I was watching Jensen's. I just started watching Ross. I was like, this is pretty cool. I like the fragrances. And then a company called BZZ Agent, they emailed me, and they usually send me shoes and shit. They said, hey, we have 2 fragrances that we would like you to sample that were released recently, and we would like you to try them out. I was like, okay. So they sent me 2 decants. They sent me a decant of YSLY EDT, and they sent me a decant of Azzaro's Wanted by Night. Wanted by Night was 2016. This was 2017. I'm hit or miss with that, but one fresh, one fall, winter, one all season. I fell in love. This, to this date, is in my wife's top 1 to 2 fragrances. This is in my wife's top 5 fragrances. This is my most worn fragrance in my entire collection. I wear it almost every single day. This one, during the fall and winter, I don't think there's a single day you'll find me not wearing it, at least at one point in time. They are my favorite fragrances. It's what started me wanting to become a reviewer. So as soon as I got these, my collection went from, I would say, between 15 and 25 to 100. It was just like, overnight, this is what I needed. And so over the next 3 years, my collection was just over and over. I just needed more and more and more. And while I still didn't get many niche, I still didn't know much about niche at that point in time. These are what really started me into really wanting to be in love with fragrances, collect fragrances, and to make that a hobby. The Wanted by Night, fruits, cinnamon. It's cinnamon dominant. It's amberwood, very, very beautiful fragrance. It's discontinued now, but you can find it on Jomashop for like $60, $70. And then YSLY EDT, the 2017 version. That's what it is, 2017. The 2017 version is the best of the 2 versions, which they discontinued a note in it, and they had to reformulate it back in 2022. The original 2017 version is more sweet and aldehydic, and the new one is more for if you want a little bit more spice and a little bit more aromatic tones. I like this one. This one's my wife, my daughter, my mom, my sister, all of us said that this one, the 2017 version, beats out the 2022, and we all did a blind test, and everyone agreed 2017 version. So if you can find the 2017 version while it lasts like an hour and a half less, it doesn't matter. This one, it is worth getting the 2017 version. It's really, really nice. Citrus, aldehydes, aromatics, clary sage, geranium. Very beautiful fragrance. One of the best lines out there. Top 3 blue lines for sure. Anyway, moving into niche. So my official first niche, again, I said was Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille. Well, that changed because my first full bottle of niche was about, I think it was 2022, maybe 2021. And that was Parfums de Marly Sedley. And I love this. And I saw Robes 08 the other day. He hated it. And that guy has some weird ass taste nowadays. And his tastes are so eclectic, I can't even watch him anymore. And it sucks because he was like the first person I ever watched on here. But I saw a video of him talking about this. I love this stuff. It's lemon, mint dominant, It has this kind of ambery, woody tone underneath it. Slightly aromatic, definitely a little bit of lavender, but it is almost like a spiced lemon mintiness, and then you get into that woody base with a bit of sweetness. Very, very nice, very mass appealing. Definitely more of a spring and summer scent than anything, but it's definitely a blue. So if you want a fresh and clean fragrance to wear in the winter, you can definitely wear that. It does go well. This is a two-parter, so technically number 8 is a two-parter because that was my fresh one. And then my first warm niche fragrance was Parfums de Marly Herod, which is still to this day, and I will say it 100 times, it's my favorite warm weather or cool weather warm fragrance that is niche. And you guys can say whatever. I don't know what it is. The fragrance, it just melts in my on my skin. It just makes me feel amazing when I spray it on. Parfums de Marly Herod is my favorite niche fragrance, probably either that or Angel Share are my two favorite niche fragrances. I absolutely am obsessed with that fragrance. And so while it is mass appealing, and so some people who love niche or niche snobs and stuff like that would be like, that's weak sauce. I really don't give a shit. I love that fragrance. It's so good. But that was my first warm weather, or cool, I keep saying that. That's my first cool weather niche fragrance outside of Tobacco Vanille. Then my first indie fragrance. So this introduced me to indie, which really is the new niche nowadays because niche has got way more mass appealing while indie is doing a lot more uniqueness. Well, this was my first indie that introduced me to that. It is by Imaginary Authors. It's Saint Julep. Saint Julep is amazing. It's still the best one from the house. It's a sugared mint. It's almost like a sugared mint creamsicle. It has a little bit of a boozy tone in there, but it's a sugared mint creamsicle. It's the best way that you can put this fragrance. It's bourbon, mint, a little bit of a floral tone underneath it, but not very noticeable. It smells like sugared mint with like a little bit of like a creamy tone and booze. Very nice, very, very nice. That introduced me to the indies, and now Copper Still, City Rhythm, all of those indie brands. And now one of my favorites, which is Coastal Carolina Parfums. It introduced me to all of those. It opened up that entire world. And lastly, I wanted to pop this out because, again, I told you guys, I have never been a huge fan of fresh fragrances. Well, in 2022, there's a fragrance that made my entire mindset on fresh fragrances change. This is Lacoste Blanc Eau Fraiche. It is probably my first or second favorite fresh fragrance, designer-wise. It is probably my favorite fresh fragrance. I would say this is my favorite fresh fragrance that is built around the spring and summer. And it's just so freaking good. Pickled ginger, which is just watery ginger. It's so freaking good. Has a little bit of a sharpness to it, but mix that together with a nice citrus. It's soft, but not soft projecting. It's like soft, clean green. It has some ambroxan giving it an effervescent tone. You have that pickled ginger, but it's so smooth and so delightful. It really opened my mind up to like, wow, there's other fragrances out there that are fresh that I actually really can find to be in the top 10 of my collection. If you would have asked me 3 years ago, I wouldn't have had a single fresh fragrance in my top 25. But now I probably have like 5 or 6 that are creeping up there as my favorites, like Vibrato and this. And again, I mean, it wouldn't call it fresh per se, but it's fresh, versatile, Allure Homme Sport Eau Extreme. But overall, this is what introduced me to like, fuck. This is what introduced me to like what fresh fragrances could really do. But anyway, yeah, those are 10 fragrances plus a couple extras that were really pivotal in my collection. Really what helped me become a fragrance reviewer all the way from when I was a kid. But that was my journey. Let me know what you guys think of that. Again, give me some of the ones that are pivotal in your collection, and I'll be back with another video. Thanks so much. Peace out.